Love Torn, The Twisted Love Series, Book 2. Written by Stacy Eaton. Narrated by Juliana Solo. Chapter 1. Did you hear they linked another body to the Lorn case? Todd Turner swallowed the last of his beer and set the brown bottle on the scarred table at McNeary's, our local de-stress joint, and the place where a lot of cops in our jurisdiction found themselves after a long shift, or trial, as it was for us today. It was always filled with cops of all ranks, firefighters, EMS workers, and the occasional bottom-feeding lawyer. Really? When was that? I tipped my own bottle and guzzled the last of the slightly bitter brew. I think that makes 3, right? Keith Harvard commented from beside me. Turner shook his head in disagreement. No, that's 4. Josh Westing frowned. It really is in serial territory now. I racked my brain for more details. It was hard staying on top of everything that was happening in the city of Philadelphia and surrounding areas. Is Stephen Harris still the lead investigator on that? Turner nodded. Yeah, Harris is working the case. I heard he has a new partner, a woman. I haven't met her, but I heard she's sweet on the eye. Westing and Harvard exchanged sly grins as Josh spoke. Nothing wrong with a female partner that's easy on the eye. I was tempted to reach across the table and smack Josh upside the head. Instead, I glanced sideways and found a very similar look on Harvard's face, his focus directed toward me. Fucking men. As if he could read my thoughts, Turner barked out a laugh. Of the 3 guys at the table with me, I'd slept with 2, one of whom had been my partner many years ago, the other a one-night stand. My current partner, Keith Harvard, was the one I hadn't rolled in the sheets with, and I planned on keeping it that way. Tonight, we were celebrating, sort of, having just finished a rough domestic violence homicide trial. Unfortunately, one of the victims had been a child, which was what had brought us all to the table tonight. The trial ended today, and the guy was found guilty of 2 counts of homicide. He'd be doing life in prison, exactly what he deserved. The jury had deliberated for a whopping 2 hours, and I imagined most of that time was because they wanted to enjoy one last catered dinner on the city's dime. Turner and I had worked together in major crimes for 5.5 years, although not as direct partners. He was my one-night stand. Westing worked narcotics, having left the street a few years ago. He'd been the first officer on scene of the domestic after he'd heard gunshots fired as he'd been walking down the street. It was a right place, right time kind of thing, hence the reason he helped us with the case. Westing witnessed some gruesome shit in the first moments upon arrival. After kicking in the door, Josh watched in horror as the guy stabbed his already lifeless 7-year-old daughter while his wife lay in a pool of her own blood. Later, we would learn that after the perp shot his wife, he stabbed his daughter a total of 11 times. Josh ended up taking the guy down, breaking a few of the perp's ribs when they bounced down half a flight of stairs and ricocheted off a wall. I had a feeling Josh may have snuck in a few punches after they'd gone head over ass. Not that I would say anything. If you asked me, Josh had been warranted the adrenaline release after what he'd witnessed. Well, warranted in my book anyway. Maybe not in any legal sense, but seriously, who was going to question it? Not any of us, that was for damn sure. Fuck that prick. He was lucky it was Westing who had found him and not me. Had I been the one to walk in on that particular scene, I would have put a bullet right between the guy's eyes rather than go hands-on with him. I took a moment to study Westing. I'd known him a long time. In fact, the 2 of us had some serious history. He'd been my beat partner when I'd first joined the force, and he'd also been the first cop I screwed while on duty. We'd had some wild moments against the police car, in the car, on top of the car. You name it, we tried it. Was it against the rules? Oh, hell yeah, it was. It was against every single protocol that we had, but back then, we didn't have body cameras on our persons, and we didn't always have them in our cars. Of course, now, all the cars had them, along with GPS devices, and they watched everyone like a hawk. I smiled into Westing's blue eyes. There was no doubt I cared about the handsome guy, but we were just friends. Friends with benefits when we were in a lull between other relationships. Well, he did relationships. I just had sex. I wasn't interested in happily ever after.